Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into an essential topic for all renters out there. The top things tenants frequently overlook before signing a tenancy agreement. Now, whether you're renting your first apartment or moving to a new place, it is crucial to thoroughly understand your tenancy agreement. Many tenants skim through their tenancy agreements, focusing only on the rent and the lease term, the duration of the lease. The first thing that is often overlooked: who is responsible for repairs and minor works. Some tenancy agreements place the burden for minor repairs on the tenant. Always look at this clause. Ensure that you're clear about your obligations so that you avoid unexpected costs. In Singapore, it is very common for tenancy agreements to state that the tenant shall be liable for any repairs below a certain amount, $100, $200, okay? And the landlord shall be responsible for any amounts higher than this threshold. The second frequently overlooked matter: the ability to terminate the tenancy agreement. Look for the termination clause, which outlines the conditions under which you can terminate the tenancy agreement. Of course, it is quite rare to find termination clauses which allow the tenant to terminate the tenancy, anytime he wants. Usually it's very specific, because the whole purpose of a tenancy agreement is to bind the tenant to a certain period of time to rent the place. The landlord doesn't want the tenant to just quit and move out of the place at any time. Check if there are any penalties and under what circumstances you can break the tenancy. Some tenancy agreements in Singapore have this thing called a diplomatic clause. A diplomatic clause essentially means that if the tenant loses his job in Singapore or he is posted overseas, only then he has the right to end the tenancy, and then he will get his deposit back. If he terminates the tenancy for any other reason, no. It will be considered a breach of contract and the deposit will be forfeited. Third issue that is often overlooked: renewal term. You should understand how the renewal process works and the notice period that has to be given if you want to renew a further term. For example, the option to renew clause may say something like, in the event that the tenant wants to renew this tenancy agreement for a further 3 years, he has to give notice no less than 2 months before the expiry date of the tenancy agreement. And if you do not give the notice in time, well, too bad, you lose the right to renew the tenancy, and the landlord has the right to, go and find another tenant. Also, very important for the option to renew: know how the new rental will be calculated. It is quite common for option to renew clauses to say something like, the new rent shall be mutually agreed between the landlord and the tenant. Now, mutually agreed. So what happens if the landlord and tenant does not agree on the mutual rent? What if the landlord decides to double or triple the rent? Then of course you're not going to agree, so therefore you don't get to renew. So look out for that. It is better for the option to renew clause to state something along the lines that any new rent shall not exceed 5% or 10% of the existing rent. Another way to address this issue would be to have a pendulum clause, which provides something like, if the rental market is on an upswing, then the rent can be increased, but no more than 10%. If the rental market is on a downswing, the rent shall be reduced to no more than 10%. Next, clarify which utilities are included in your rental and what type of utilities you're responsible for. You don't want to be in the situation where you already signed a tenancy agreement, and then after moving into the unit, you realize that you not only have to pay for the electricity, but you have to pay for the Wi-Fi, the water, the telephone. I've seen some tenancy agreements where the tenant has to pay for furniture rental. So look out for clauses like that. The tenancy agreements for commercial property frequently include many types of charges. For example, advertising and marketing fund charges, cleaning charges, service charges, this, that, whatever charges. All these will add to your rental, okay? So, and if you're a business owner, you want to look at all these additional charges. Another thing that is frequently overlooked, inventory. Before moving in, make sure there's a detailed inventory and condition report. This protects you from being charged for damages to the furniture or the inventory or missing inventory when the tenancy expires and you move out. You can watch my earlier video on this strange phenomenon of Singapore landlords refusing to return the rental deposit. The link is below. Next, check the section called covenants, or specifically tenants covenants. Covenants is like something that the tenant has to abide by. Look out for restrictions on modifications. That means changing the layout. Look out for restrictions on pets, for smoking, on subletting. It is quite common in Singapore for tenancy agreements to have a clause stating that tenants cannot insert nails into the walls. It is also common in Singapore for residential landlords to have strict policies regarding guests. Some tenancy agreements explicitly prohibit tenants from having guests or having overnight guests. Some tenancy agreements would specify the number of visitors, the frequency of guests that a tenant can have. For example, 2 times a week, no overnight, or twice a month for overnight visits allowed. Surprisingly, many landlords in Singapore do not allow tenants to cook in the rental property. This is mainly due to concerns about the smell and cleanliness. Be sure to check if there are any such restrictions, especially if you prefer to cook at home. Remember, many Singapore landlords are described as niao, which is a local phrase which refers to being overly restrictive to the extent of being repressive. Make sure you understand and are comfortable with such restrictions before you sign, because not adhering to these terms can lead to disputes or even being kicked out of the property. And when you're kicked out of the property, you can expect your security deposit to be forfeited, okay? Taking the time to thoroughly review your tenancy agreement and understanding the terms and knowing these frequently overlooked details can save you from a lot of headaches down the line. So thanks for watching this video. See you next time.